back.
Yes.
PowersShift episode 17. We've referenced Darby so much. We had a friend, Ellie, actually gift us this. She's listening to the podcast. And so for those of you who know Darby, here she is. If you have not met her, this is Darby.
And if you ever hear the term Darbalicious, that came from me.
We took some time off, somewhat. I mean, in terms of recording and just like hustling through another episode. So it's been nice to have a little bit of a break so we could decompress and also think about what we want to do to move forward. How's the break been for you, Dad?
People ask me that, and it's been good.
Do they really?
Yeah, they do. How's it going? And I go, I'm not really sure. Where I'm at right now is it's a lot of contemplation, learning a lot about listening on a lot of levels, really listening body, soul, and spirit.
Yeah, so today we want to just talk. For now, we just want to have a conversation and check in and see how, again, how this podcast is shaping us. And
which was our original goal anyway, right? Was to bridge gaps by having conversations.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So one, I was thinking, I don't know, we're doing this on the fly, but I read this book by Paul Zahl called Peace in the Third Phase of Life. And his wife practices a listening exercise. Part of the book for people my age was at this age in our life, we need to find people to listen to us and people that we can listen to.
Why is that important for your stage of life?
It's important for all stages, but he said most people go their whole life without actually really being listened to. It's not an exact quote, but he said most people listen with responding in mind, not with listening in mind. And so this exercise helps us practice listening. I know for myself, you can speak for yourself. I am a pretty good listener, but I'm also always thinking about how I can fix whatever the person's saying. So in reality, I can be a lot better listener. I hear details, I remember things about people, but that isn't really listening to somebody. And I think from our conversations, maybe that's kind of how I was when you guys were growing up. I was always waiting to respond, had an opinion, had a viewpoint. One of my heroes, Dallas Willard, says he practiced not having or not making a point, which is a challenge.
Yeah, especially for the oldest.
People like us. This came out of Peace in the Third Phase of Life, and this, I don't have all the background on it. I can get that for people if they want it. But let me just read this. Genuine listening is a rare gift, yet dedicating just a bit of time and intention can transform how we connect and heal through conversation. Inspired by Paul Zahl's insights in Peace in the Last Third of Life, this is a listening exercise designed to deepen our relationships and understanding of one another. It's a structured exchange meant to foster empathy, respect, and self-discovery. So here's how we get started. Step 1, find your listening partner. Hey.
Oh, hey, Dad.
Hey, nice to meet you. You don't know me? Step 2, create a distraction-free zone. Got the computers off, got our phones on stun or whatever it's called. We've got air conditioner off.
It's a stun gun.
So create a distraction-free zone. Select a quiet, comfortable spot where interruptions are unlikely. Silence your phones, but keep a timer handy to monitor your listening sessions. Step 3, timing is everything. Agree on a listening duration between 5 to 15 minutes for each speaker. This limit helps maintain focus and respect for the process. Step 4, Speaker and listener roles. Decide who will speak first. The speaker can share thoughts on something troubling or confusing them recently or whatever. There's no pressure to fill the entire time. What matters is expressing what feels important in the moment. So that word feels there would be how you're feeling physically, somatically, and also how you're feeling in other ways.
Mm-hmm.
Step 5, the art of listening. The listener's role is to offer their complete attention. This is the thing. No interruptions, just nonverbal cues of understanding or prompts for the speaker to elaborate if they wish. Oh, yeah. Uh-huh. Ooh.
Oh.
Step 6, reflective questions. Once the speaker's time ends, the listener asks 2 key questions. First one is, of all that you've shared, what do you feel is most significant? And is there anything you'd like to do in response to your feelings? After each answer, the listener repeats the speaker's words, ensuring accurate understanding without adding personal interpretations. So in the coaching world, that would be reflection,
Okay.
reflecting.
Okay.
So what do you think?
Yeah, let's give it a shot.
So you're going to talk for 15 minutes and I'm going to listen and then ask you these questions.
Okay.
And the questions are, of all that you've shared, what do you feel is most significant? And is there anything you'd like to do in response to your feelings?
You're gonna be able to handle this, Dad? Do we need to get some
Probably not.
Do we need to get some duct tape?
And a and a duct tape and a cattle prod.
So what's going on in my life? Oh, let's see. Yeah, I think right now in my life, it's a lot of learning how to trust God in real time. And I think I've said that before. Trust God and trust myself. So it's being mindful of where my time and my attention is going. And I feel like, the first year I was here was a lot of going within and having to just decompress from the journey here and what led me here, and being away from Port Angeles, just because that was like my last, home for more than 5 years. So being able to, you know, decompress, and then now in this going into my second year of being home, a lot of it is like, okay, being intentional with where I'm putting, like I said, where I'm putting my time. And I have, it's hard for me because I like so many things. I have a lot of interests, and so to focus in on a few of those, I can't just pick one. I've come to the place in my life where I don't have to pick one. But can I get focused on a few and really pour my energy into those areas? So, like, I'm doing this podcast, which is, a gift, and in so many ways, like just this time that I get with you, and I'm loving that. It's also challenging because we're working together. I'm learning about you in ways that I you know didn't know, and there's stress and there's fear. I get nervous about talking about things that I don't quite have figured out, because there's this element of perfectionism that I'm dealing with, where it's hard for me to talk about things when I don't myself know what the heck's going on with those. And so when we're, with you and I having these vulnerable conversations, I think that yeah, I get nervous about that. So there's a lot of emotional input there. And then I started my own business last year as well. So I have Hilary Jane Studio, which is my art business. So it's the pyrography and the wood burning, and just what that's making me face in my life is a lot as well. So I have a business coach who I'm working with, and he's helping me kind of put rubber to the road and really get things going. And it's just hard. So, it's stressful in the sense of how do I monetize this and actually live off of it when I don't really, there's a part of me that doesn't really feel like it's ever possible to monetize your creativity. So it's just a different perspective when, you're creating just to create, but then now you're creating to actually make money. So I'm preparing for some festivals and some fairs I have going on next month, the next couple months. I started selling roofs, and that is again just a new venture. So learning a lot, learning the lingo, getting into the world of insurance, and hopefully this can be an avenue for more flexibility for me, and then also some security financially. But on top of that too, it's this whole year is an opportunity for me to stay put, to stay in the discomfort, to stay in the unknown. I wrestle with, I'm pretty self-critical, and I wrestle with questions that I feel like can be pretty off-putting to myself, of like, what the hell are you doing here? Why are you living in your parents' quote unquote basement? Even though y'all don't have a basement, but you know what I mean. I thought I'd be further along. I want to be married and have kids, and what the heck am I doing? So it's in this like momentum and this like suspension, where I feel like I'm wrestling, and I think for the first time ever, I'm not holding back with God. Like, I'm giving it all to God, and we're building this relationship and this intimacy like I've never really experienced before, and in turn, like, how that's affecting my relationships. It's all more vulnerable, and it's all more like, for me, it's like my fight or flight is just to go. It's like when things get difficult or uncomfortable or awkward, or there's emotion, intense emotion, I should say, I want to like withdraw and leave and go be alone and go live in the woods by myself. And I think too, it's it's learning to stay in that mess, and it's also learning when I do need to step back, because I do need that space. I do need that time alone, and I'm not really alone. It's me going out and connecting with nature, with God in a way that like really brings me back to like the core of who I am, I guess. So yeah, I'm wrestling with what I believe still. I think being in the church brings up a lot for me, because at one point the church was my enemy, and I wanted nothing to do with religion, Christianity specifically, the church. I didn't want to be associated with a religion that has caused so much pain in the world. And now that I am and I'm in it, it's like, well, how do I be in this space and be true to who I am and who God says I am, and not get swept in the noise, the noise of it all. And I feel sometimes at odds in the church because of just my background and the life I have lived. And like, there's this meme I saw one time, and it says, my Christian friends think I'm a freak because I'm gay, and my gay friends think I'm a freak because I'm a Christian. And I don't even, like, that's the other thing, is like, I don't feel like the word gay even describes me anymore. I just feel like I stopped using that identity several years ago, just because it, again, like I have grown and shifted, and my sexuality does too. And so to me, it's just, I felt like that word, you know, that label, I guess I should say, was keeping me in a box. But that quote just, it still really resonates, you know, because I feel like I'm in this place where a lot of my friends who have felt, myself included, who felt like, you know, outed by the church and kind of pushed off into the margins, you know, there's some of the most godly spiritual people I know. And they have, you know, passion and a zeal for going deeper and connecting with God. And we might call it God something different, you know, our higher power, the universe, you know, whatever. But I feel like, again, I feel sometimes like and I think I think I've said this before, but sometimes I just don't feel like I belong anywhere specifically. And I know that I do, but I feel like I am sometimes like a walking paradox in a lot of ways, and that I think is a great thing, can be a great thing, but it's also can be very confusing and sometimes isolating. And I think that might surprise people on the outside who know me and look at me, because I you know, I can have a conversation with anybody, and you know, I feel like I'm pretty like accepted, you know, for the most part, but internally it doesn't always feel that way, I guess. So yeah, that's what's going on in my life.
Of all that you've shared, what do you feel is the most significant?
I think it's my walk with God, and that I feel like I'm supposed to be a bridge in a lot of different ways. So whether it's with my whatever I'm doing with the podcast, with my art, with the roofing, you know, with my exploration of my sexuality and how that relates to, you know, to God. Like, I just feel like I'm supposed to be a bridge. And I don't even think I said that within that time frame, but that's, I think, the most important thing. And how do I walk that out, I guess.
Is there anything you'd like to do in response to those feelings or how you're feeling?
No.
Okay. So good. Yeah.
How was that for you?
Pretty good. I wasn't trying to fix you. I think once you kind of understand the guidelines, it's not my job it's never been my job to fix you. Even though I spent half your growing up years trying to do that. And just giving people the space to talk about what's going on. There were a couple of times I wanted to respond to things you were saying about the journey, but I actually did pretty better than I thought.
Nice.
Internally, I didn't feel this urge to lean forward and try to make a point.
Yeah. It's funny because I almost was like, there were times where it's like I was waiting for you to respond,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like I just want validation, you know, for something I'm saying. And so I think it was good for me I feel like it helped me to just sit with myself and not, so often seek that external validation or like
And that's okay.
approval. Yeah.
Yeah.
But also, like, can I get to the place where I don't seek that?
Or who validates us? You know, who is it? I know I do. And then maybe that's part of growing in a conversation.
Is that a question? Who validates?
It's a rhetorical one. It's like, who is it that validates? Is it me that validates you? Does God validate you? Is it your friends? Maybe it's all of those. It's okay to need validation. And even I think as relationships grow, it's okay to ask. I need validation right now. I need affirmation that I'm not X, crazy, off the wall here, missing the mark, right, whatever. It's okay to, I think that's the maturation of a relationship and conversation.
Yeah.
Being able to say those things.
Yeah. Verbalize what you need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
I've been in this place of dormancy. At least that's kind of my thinking has been. I just feel kind of like level and not highs and not lows, but kind of level. And as I've thought about that for the past 2 months or so, I started thinking, I think in terms of being a farmer, which is when you plant seeds, they have to go in the ground and become dormant. Like if you plant seeds in the winter, they go in the ground for a period of time, and you have to have that period of time for that seed to go into the ground and then in the spring come out and grow. But we often look at dormancy as a static, inactive thing, and it's really not. And I felt like what I'm supposed to be doing in that is to cultivate. To me, that means growing in terms of I've been thinking about who I be or who I am rather than what I do. Spent a lot of years doing instead of being. My destiny is to affirm, validate, encourage, challenge, and support whoever comes across my path. Am I being that person? Am I doing that? And so I think the answer is I'm becoming that encourager, that validator, that affirmer, and it takes time. But I have to start. Have had to start with myself. So, this has been going on for at least 6 years now of me doing interior work. My relationship with God, my relationship with Lori, my wife, my kids, my friends, is how am I showing up in those contexts, and who am I being? I've discovered that I'm a father figure to a lot of people, and I didn't really realize that. And that's kind of my heart. But what I'm seeing is my job is to not fix people, but it's to walk alongside of them and be a friend and be a good listener and all that. So that's easy to say, and so it's harder to be that and to do that, and it takes discipline. And how that's shown up for me is just in my meditation. There's something I just learned. I just learned about this word hongi. It's in the Maori tribe in New Zealand. I think the people there, they have this that they welcome people to the islands and to New Zealand, and you touch noses and put your foreheads together, and you're sharing breath, and you're sharing dreams and thoughts and all that. And it's once that happens to somebody that's not from there, then you become part of that group. And I'm just thinking about that in terms of who I want to be in my life. Somebody that's welcoming. And as I listen to you, I'm going, the people that that don't feel welcome by people like me, I want to bridge that gap. But I also know that you can't give away what you don't possess yourself. I feel like this journey I'm on is becoming who I'm supposed to be. That will in turn affect what I do in life. My job is to love people, to care for people, and those are things that I control, and I can do something and be something with regard to that. So, how that makes me feel is I've got a lot of work to do on myself, but that I am showing people that they are loved, that I am caring about people, that people matter. I don't want to call myself a Christian so much as I want to say I follow Jesus and his teachings, and he never marginalized people, except maybe religious people. And so I'm rethinking all of the stuff that I thought I believed or that I knew, and I feel like that I'm being challenged to expand my thinking, to take the blinders off, and uh, So it's something that's not done yet. I'm not finished. I've got a long way to go. And I think that awareness in these last months and years has been a real growth for opportunity, and a place where I've really grown is my awareness around of people around me and situations around me. I want people to feel loved, to feel safe, to feel like they have a voice. I'm thinking of feeling in terms of thinking and emotion, but I want people to feel that physically. What does it feel like to feel peace? I think I'm learning that. To feel trust. What does that feel like in our bodies? When your mom, when Lori dropped dead in the living room, I felt whatever happens when adrenaline dumps into your system, like when you see a bear in the woods. I felt that. It was terror, and it's taken me years to process that, and two specifically of an intense reliving of those events. So I would feel it in my body, almost like I did the night it happened. And so processing that, maybe learning how to feel again, feel joy, feel sorrow, feel peace, feel love, and the feeling of loving people and the feeling of being loved. Not being in a hurry. It's a slow work. It takes, honestly, it takes your whole life to grow. If you stop growing, I think you die. And probably one of my biggest fears in life is stagnation.
Of all that you've shared, what do you feel is most significant?
Well, I didn't say it in that, but I was meaning it, is that my relationship with you and your siblings, very, very important to me. Watching you grow has produced joy. Watching that formation, transformation. And what I see is it's a ripple effect with you and your brother and your sisters. They're on a growth arc as well, and I see it coming from your influence. I don't know. I just feel like that there's a whole lot to learn there. But the most significant thing is my growth in doing this podcast is it's about that. It's really not about the podcast. It's the stuff we're learning while we're doing the podcast, which is how to have a conversation, how to listen without having an agenda, without having to respond. I'm doing the work that I'm talking about in the podcast. So it's like you're in the boat together. We're all learning something. Maybe it's different stuff, but we're all learning it from it.
Yeah, that's good. Is there anything you'd like to do in response to your feelings?
Well, working with Ellie just that one afternoon has created more curiosity about that. I didn't say it in the main conversation, but when she worked with me, I saw myself standing on a cliff, on a ledge, like a little cleft in a wall. And I was looking across an expanse to a door that was closed. And the gap between where I was standing on that ledge and the other ledge where the door was too far for me to jump. I couldn't just jump over there and go through that door. So what needs to happen, what I feel like is happening with me is I'm working on closing the gap. For me, as I've said to Steve before, this is where I see myself, and this is where I feel like God and others see me. And all of my quote unquote work in life and becoming in life is closing this gap. And that's the work.
Yeah, no, I think that whole experience and your vision with the doors was really there's a lot of symbolism in that and a lot of significance. And so there's, excuse me, it creates curiosity for me as well, you know?
What do you think of this exercise?
Yeah, I think it's good. I want to, I'd love to do it again, and I want to try it with some friends too. It's nice to not have all the distractions. You
Right.
know? Well, I feel like there's so much of of nonverbal, energetic exchanges happening when we're having a conversation,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that in my body there's almost like maybe it's almost like it's kind of like this tug almost like that you kind of know or like I feel like sometimes I can sense someone's not fully grasping or paying attention
Yeah.
to me and so it maybe I think what I do in those situations is I pull back a little bit. Even like maybe I do it even subconsciously, but I think I withdraw a bit, you know.
And from a listener's perspective, you can zone out. But the other part of what you're saying is there's a time for this, and then there's a time for interaction, and you and I riff off of each other, and we laugh about stuff we probably shouldn't, and and we make jokes and we poke fun at each other in good fun, and there's a place for that.
Right.
But this right here, I think you're right. Taking away the distractions and feeling like you're being listened to is very valuable. You and I have spiritual directors and coaches, and we are coaches.
Mm.
And listening is the main part of that. All of those practices.
Yeah.
That's even a therapeutic thing. Is in fact, from a therapy, and I'm not a therapist, so y'all, this isn't therapy. What we're talking about, but therapy is born out of being quiet and listening to somebody talk so that they can in turn heal themselves.
Mm-hmm.
With coaching, you're creating this safe space for a person to think and create goals and plans for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Therapy tends to go back and look at the past and all that and come up with solutions. Coaching starts with the present and moves forward.
Yeah. Well, and I think for what all of this is making me think about too is how much stimulation is happening just by our interactions with each other. I mean, I wonder how many words you and I probably are neck and neck, how many words we use in a day.
Yeah,
But that's where,
a lot.
yeah, a lot. But I feel like that to me is also like the indicator of I need to step away and I need to get out of this.
Well, we have people thresholds, right? Where you and I can go all day long, all week long, all month long, and with people, but then you hit a wall.
Yeah.
And for some people, they hit that wall after one conversation.
Right. Right.
So it's learning. Maybe that's kind of what Ellie's talking about too. We should ask her is when you start feeling those things in your body, can you use those as tools to get away, to be silent, to have solitude, to pray, to rest, whatever it is, using your body as a barometer for some of that.
Well, yeah, it's just information. We're just little like antennas, you know, like we're just little antennas. Like I have to literally pry myself away from society, yet like I can't be more excited to get into the woods and go have that time away to decompress. And I think just with all the information and all the things that we're learning and we're taking in, I mean, you and I both between the both of us, we're probably reading like 20 books. And that's great. But for me, it's just I think taking this break with the podcast and working with my spiritual directors, finding this rhythm and this cadence to unplug, and then even just away from the interactions with other people. And
how can you balance it? That's another thing I've noticed. My attention span has seemed shorter, and I want to increase my ability to read, say, for example, read and retain what I'm reading.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you've said this before too, like, I've been trying to take moments throughout the day just going and sitting outside and not reading, not writing, because I journal too, and it's just, again, it's thinking not even the words that I say, but the words that I'm taking in. Like, that's just so much information. So yeah, how do we pull back? And that can be, for me, it's like living in a place where hiking and all the activities aren't as part of the culture here in Mississippi. Like, it's there, and I've met people who are in that world.
Way more than it used to be.
Yeah, but it's definitely harder than being in a place like Washington, where it's like,
Yeah.
that's everywhere and it's accessible and all of that stuff. So it takes a lot of discipline for me and work and just like commitment to say, no, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna get outside, and I just think there's something, I don't feel as connected to the land here. And I was talking to my spiritual director about this, like, that to me is one of the most important things about living in a place, is being connected to the land. And I think Port Angeles was honestly, well, I think it was the place that I was intentionally aware of building that connection with place.
Right.
And I think that again is an area where collectively, like, we're starving in that way.
So one thing I know, people don't know this, but you're getting ready to do an 80-mile bike ride
Yeah.
to do silence and solitude.
Yeah, and I could, that's the thing too. It's like I could do 80 miles in a day, but purposely, it's like I'm gonna like stretch it out over 3 days and do 2 nights in the woods, and again, it usually, like, if I do a hike, it takes me, or not a hike, let's say a backpacking trip or a camping trip, it takes me a night or two to really feel like I'm there.
Wind down.
And that, I can feel like when I get, even just on a little hike, I can start to feel my energy just like kind of level out.
So the point being is getting out in nature, and you don't have to do an 80-mile hike or a ride or a 10-mile hike. You can do what we did a couple of weeks ago, is just go for 2 or 3 miles, or down the street, or sit in your backyard and still yourself. That takes that takes discipline.
Yeah.
Especially with how much, I think we touch our screens over 2,800 times a day, something like that. And I read something as far as advertisement goes in our culture and society, it's like 3,000 to 5,000 inputs, consumer type inputs a day on us. So there's just all this noise.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's probably where a lot of the stress and anxiety and that a lot of us are feeling, is that's just like, we're not meant to be, we're just consuming. Like, that's all it is. And I don't think our bodies are made, they're resilient and they make do, and, they push through. They're beautiful, but it's like, we're not meant to be that, like, plugged in all the time. And it's just like noise in the body. Like, for me, it is. It's
Frequencies.
like, I feel, exactly. I feel that. So, yeah.
We really want people to feel like we are accessible, in the sense that we really are listening. We're not here to give you therapy or, even advice necessarily. We just want it to be a safe place where people can feel like, one, is you're not the only one that's feeling these things. There are people out there that care. There are people out there that care, that don't know how to show people they care. Caring is just a decision. It doesn't have to be Mother Teresa or Nelson Mandela. It can be your neighbor or your kids, or your parents or whatever. Just choose to care. The balance between it's all about me and it's about me and the work that I need to do in me.
You're saying, like, that's what about that?
No, it's like, he says, I'm saying choose to care, which is kind of directive. What I'm meaning is it's a choice we make.
Yeah.
And there's balance between caring about just being self-centered
Yeah.
and thinking of yourself all the time, but balancing that with thinking about others and what's going on with them.
Yeah, definitely. Well, again, I think that's all, a lot of what we talk about too. I think I'm speaking for you, but is community and the importance of
Yeah.
doing this with each other and us all being in the boat together. Like
Yeah.
this is hard, and we're I'm in the thick of it, and I don't post all the details about that because I don't want to,
Right.
and that's my choice. But I think that something I see collectively. I know it's something individually I need, but it is it community
Yeah.
is having each other and having the space to grow and not be finished. You
Yeah.
don't it doesn't have to be this polished thing. It can be like we're in the process together. Like this podcast, like you said, is we're applying a lot of what we're learning in real time, and it's like, how do we embody it? How do we not just learn about it and study about it, but actually, like you said, be it?
Right. And we're not saying spill your guts to everybody. Some things need to be private. Some things are nobody else's business. But the whole thing of listening, if we're going to connect it to that, is sometimes that's all that a person needs. I just need a way to process this, whatever this is. And they just need somebody to be a listening ear that's not going to go put it on Facebook or
Right.
TikTok or whatever. It's
Right.
creating a safe space. But really, yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you, Darbalicious.
Yeah, Dara, we're here. We'll talk to you after here in a little bit.
Yeah.
But wherever you're at, whatever time of day you're listening, we just want to say that we love you and we see you. And please reach out. If you need anything, if you have questions, if you want input, whatever, give us feedback. You can reach us at it's PowersShift Coaching at Gmail, or just find us online and respond that way.